Hello, I'm retired Fire Chief Phil Turnbull, and welcome to Project Rogue Fire, where I'm inviting you to join me as I explore fire protection in Josephine County, Oregon. If you're new to the series or would just benefit from a little bit of background information, I invite you to review Episode 1 before you proceed. Otherwise, let's go. And today we're sitting down with Ralph Wiedling, and your position number 5 candidate for the county fire district. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Ralph, would you go ahead and start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a retired firefighter. I spent 27 years in the fire service um, down in the San Francisco Bay Area. My last 10 years as a captain. I was also a rescue team manager on one of the federal emergency response teams, California Task Force 4.
And if I remember correctly, you told me that you were actually deployed on Katrina.
Yes, I did. I spent about 28 days at Hurricane Katrina.
There's a whole podcast right there sometime, Ralph.
Yeah, it could be for sure. Yeah, there was some very exciting times down there and some definite what I would call life-saving rescues, but big percentage of it was just relocating people from wet areas to dry land.
I can understand.
Yeah.
An important part of the job, though.
Yeah. And I also I was a senior instructor for the state of California in technical rescue, all aspects of it. And I was on the curriculum committee for the California State Fire Training and FEMA Structural Collapse manual, which the state calls it Rescue Systems 3.
All right.
That prior to that, I was a small business owner for 18 years. I started when I was 18 years old and had that until I decided to become a firefighter.
What was the nature of the business?
It was a motorcycles dealership. I was actually
Oh.
a franchise Kawasaki and BMW dealer.
All right.
And that business is in Walnut Creek. We did a huge police bike business, serviced over 400 police motorcycles.
Wow.
City of San Francisco, City of San Jose, all the small police departments around. And it was pretty exciting. But my heart was always into being a firefighter. I'd started taking classes right out of high school. And uh, California, there was a Proposition 13. It was a tax-based deal on property taxes.
I recall it.
And it passed, and our instructors started saying, you guys start looking in another direction because there's not going to be the money out there to hire more firefighters. So I got involved with the motorcycle business, and but my heart was already always in the fire service. And after 18 years, a few friends of mine in high school had gotten hired in the fire service. They'd come by, and 18 years later, I decided I'm going to do it. And I went to college, got my fire science degree.
I'll be darned.
And my firefighter 1, EMT, and took, believe it or not, 40 exams and got hired. I mean, I was always finishing the top group, but just, didn't get there. And then I always said to myself, and everybody told you, once it happens, you'll get multiple calls. Sure enough, I taken a test in Tracy, California, finished number 1. Didn't hear anything, and then the city of Livermore, the Tri-Valley test, which was 7 agencies, and I came out number 3 on that test. I got a phone call from the chief of Livermore, give me an interview, and he hired me. And the next day after I'd gotten hired, I got a phone call from the city of Tracy offering me a job. And I had to say to the chief there, I said, well, chief, the next person in line is going to be happy because unfortunately I've already been offered a job and I accepted it. And I made that promise to myself. Whoever hired me first, I was staying.
About what circa are we? What year?
That was 1991.
Okay. Okay. I went through something very similar in the very late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, there were thousands of applicants for every opening.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that way anymore.
No, it's not.
It's a completely different world. So I went through something very similar,
Yeah.
trying to get my first full-time job in the fire service. About how long ago did you move up here?
Well, 2015, Carol, my wife and I bought a house. My wife, Carol's a 40-year ER nurse and flight nurse on a helicopter. And I told her, I said, well, it's time to retire. So we started looking around and we had friends in Nevada. And I said, how about Nevada? And she goes, no, I'm not going to move to Nevada. And she always come up here as a kid. And she goes, how about Grants Pass, Oregon? And I'd been through Oregon, but, I really remember. We took a ride up here and stayed at the Waskew Inn.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
down there, and talked to a lady that worked there, and we come up again, and she said, "Oh, you're back." And she goes, "Yeah, we're looking to buy a house and retire up here." And she says, "Well, I know a realtor. I'll give you one of their cards." And I've started falling in love with the place because it's just beautiful. And we went out with a realtor, and it was, I think, the sixth house we look at, and it set the bar. And every from then on was comparing it. And being a firefighter, you'd go look at a house, and I remember the first time I said to the realtor, I said, "Well, that one's a loser." And she looked at me like, "What did you just say?" And I had to explain to her that
Yeah,
because of the slope it was on, and the brush and everything, and that. And she goes, "Oh, okay, I understand what you're saying."
I did instantly.
Yeah, and so that was the fun part. But we ended up getting the one that that set the bar, and love it. And I'd never leave here. This is a great place
All
and
right.
beautiful
Well,
community.
obviously, you're willing to step forward and try to give something back to the community.
Yes,
This board position's an unpaid position.
yes, it is.
So, you want to talk a little bit about why you're running that and what you
Well,
think what your vision is for the new fire district?
moving up here, and I remember one of the first fires. I'd run into town, and I was heading back out 199, going towards the coast because we live up off riverbanks, and I see a column, and it looked close to where I estimate our house is. So I picked up the phone, I called 911, and I said, "Hey," identified myself, said I'm a retired firefighter. I said, "I know it's a smoke column, it's a fire." And I said, "I'm heading that way." And I estimated to him, I said, I'm thinking it's between Shan Creek and Limpy Creek." And she said, "Okay." So they started equipment coming, and I got closer and got up in the street. It ended up being up at the end of Dutcher Creek.
Oh, okay.
So I
You
corrected
weren't off
him.
by too far.
Yeah, no, so I corrected him. I said, it's up off Dutcher Creek. Ended up being on Dutchy Way. And I started watching the equipment coming in. And I'm watching, and I was spoiled where I worked. We had 3 and 4 person companies. And I'm watching all these rigs come in with 2 people on them, going,
Yeah,
"Whoa."
that's the
But
local standard.
and boom, they had a helicopter in the air real quick, and pretty soon I'm listening, and I had an app where I could listen to the dispatch, and they had a wet line around. The helicopter pretty much stopped any forward progress on. I'm going, boy, they did damn good for having 2 person companies on there and getting in there and getting around it and going after it. And by the way, while I was there was a gal flying a drone, and I had to go kind of, "Hey, you need to stop." And she
Yeah.
didn't like that, but I told her, I said, "You need to quit flying it because you're going to ground all the aircraft." But I saw that, and I said, "Wow, these guys do a good job." And I just was impressed. And my values in the fire service was always treat the people, whether it's a fire or a medical call or whatever. I always had in my mind, how would I want them if it was my family we're responding to?
Absolutely.
So that's my point. I want the citizens that live in the county area that's going to be protected by this rural district to get the best service they can and the best bang for the buck. And I think with my background, both in business and fire service, I ran budgets in the fire department and such, that I think I could be an asset to this group. One thing that I'll talk about that I'd like to see change, and I know rural metro doesn't do it, because in talking to Austin and Steve.
And for our listeners, that's the chief and operations chief for Rural Metro.
Correct, is that rural metro is very fiscally responsible. They have to account for every dollar they spend. And the experience I had, I'm not saying that city or county departments waste money, but it's a part of their process and budgeting. When I got promoted to captain, our Chief Bill Cody, came from LAC. He put me in charge of our tools and equipment program at $100,000 budget. And he had seen an engineer had been running the program, and he wanted a captain to oversee it. He just felt the responsibility should be with a captain. So with my background in business, I went in and I said, "There's no inventory, just all this stuff in these rooms everywhere." So I got a computer program, put it on my computer, where I could input everything, assign what station's going to get something automatically deducted. I put the value, what everything costs.
Basic accountability.
Accountability. And I went back to the chief and I said, Chief, I said, we have a huge backlog of equipment. I mean, this was from a screwdriver in the toolbox of an engine to nozzles. You mean everything, chainsaws, you name it, SCBAs, the whole 9 yards. And I said, we have such a backlog of equipment. Yes, there's a few things we need, but we have so much and it's going to last for years. I only need about $40,000 of this at the most. I said, can we take the rest and put it in a reserve account, emergency, if we ever have a problem and need something, so it's there? And he goes, no, the way the system works, use it or lose it. And I was just like, we're just going to spend money and just order more stuff and just have more stuff. And that's something that needs to change because I think there should always be an emergency budget there. And if you can save the money by being fiscally responsible, have a contingency budget, that's something that we need to work towards. And not, like I said, rural metro doesn't do that. But if the county operates that way, I would like to work to change something. That way we keep the service level where it is, which in my book, being a retired firefighter, rural metro does a really good job. And rural metro, even right now being a private entity, they still have a great working relationship with all the other fire districts in the area, mutual aid, auto aid. That would continue. And the other benefit of forming this district is that opens up to getting state grants, where currently rural metro cannot get state grants because of a private entity.
Right.
And
yeah, that's
another positive of forming this district.
That's a great point, Ralph. Are there any other benefits that you can think of to having the district?
Yeah, I mean, you have more accountability, public accountability with this. Currently, I mean, rural metro is very accountable. I mean, they do a great job. They provide an excellent service at a high level, but being a private for-profit company, they really can do whatever they want. If they wanted to lower service, they could. I don't see where they would ever do that because they don't, knowing the little bit I know in the chief and the operations chief, they live in this community. They're part of this community. They wouldn't allow that, but it would bring that where the public has more accountability, or they have public accountability.
Great point
towards this,
and a fair point.
Yeah,
I want to express my appreciation for you coming in and sitting down with me today. Is there anything before we wrap up that you'd like to kind of summarize for the listeners?
Yeah, I just I'd like to say that with my background, both business and fire service, and I feel that I would be a definite asset to this board if elected. And my goal would be to keep the level of service, and in fact, if we can, make it better. And one thing I'd like to add, I mean, if there was any change that I would look at in the near future, as far as the current setup of where rural metro stations are, the one thing I would look at is possibly locating another station, not moving a station, but if we could put another station in, and this would be on the east side of Highway 5. And the reason for that is everybody talks about the Cascadia earthquake.
You're talking about the Hugo area?
Hugo area,
yeah.
And what do you call it? Colonial Valley.
Yeah.
Is in a major earthquake, you're going to lose your overpasses possibly. And if you have no apparatus or availability to respond on that side, that would be somewhere I would kind of suggest we look at putting a firehouse in. Where I came from, we had the 580, 680 interstates, and there were stations on both sides of the freeways. Mainly that, of course, to stay within our 4-minute response, but it was also in the event of losing the overpasses and not being able to get across.
Well, and as you know, there'd be a real benefit to the residents around that interchange, and having a fire station up there and put them within that 5-mile radius. It's so important to so many insurance companies. Not every insurance company, but a lot of them still use that 5-mile radius.
Yeah. I'd like to just end with I appreciate you asking me to come on and
All right.
talk with you.
Okay. Well, good luck in the upcoming election, Ralph, and I will see you out there.
Thank you.